Yeah, so just to maybe summarize and explain this very prevalent theme, Ein Sof, when we speak of the Ein Sof, we are referring to God, but Ein Sof means there is no end. It is suggested elsewhere in Kabbalah also that God shouldn't just be known as that entity that has no end, because he's infinite. Obviously, infinite has no end. But just as we say that he has no end, Ein Sof, Sof means end, we can also say Ein Techila, that he has no beginning. No beginning and no end. That's the nature of infinity, true infinity, as God is. But given his infinity and given his all-encompassing infinity, we are all a part, in many ways, of that infinity, because every one of us has a soul. That soul is a part of God. So it's not just that when we're speaking about Ein Sof, we're speaking about some inconceivable concept that there's an entity that's eternal, that doesn't have a beginning nor end, but we're actually speaking about us too. In many ways, we are part of that eternity. And this chapter again focuses a lot on how to meditate so that we can awaken the feelings of love and of connection, of deep bonding with God. Then that is one of the ways to understand that God is all encompassing, God is all evading. That's the way. That's a respectful term, but for us, we're a part of that. And when we understand that our essential identity is God, is infinite, then we're able also to welcome God into our lives much more, and at the same time also to love that God. So I think that's the deeper concept that uh, we've been sharing. But let's continue, practically speaking, because again, all of this is quite abstract and quite esoteric. So Rabbi Steinsaltz is in his own unique way, loves to bring these concepts to earth, to our finite minds. So let's continue, practically speaking. Bottom of page 66. Does anyone want to read?
I'll read if nobody else wants to.
All right, thank you, Mom.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Practically speaking, normal personal interrelationships are based on feelings of this caliber. People talk about, think about, and act on feelings when in essence they have never gotten beyond a level in their social perception that such and such is how they should feel. Whether of love or of hate, the feelings are not necessarily true. Rather, they are an intellectual group consensus. That is the correct way to react. A person can pass through his entire life with normal, fine interrelationships. He feels that he loves and is loved in return. Others regard him as decent, generous, and compassionate. Yet not once in his lifetime did he experience a real life feeling instead of its surrogate. Perhaps he was unaware of this. Sometimes it is only in exceptional crisis conditions that a true life emotion emerges, whether love, hate, or compassion. Someone can behave as though he were compassionate, believe he is compassionate, and possibly even try to feel that way, but never actually be compassionate. What then? He reached an awareness that being merciful is important, and now he is role-playing, performing the pertinent commandments, caring, even at times with self-sacrifice, for less fortunate individuals, but without once feeling true compassion.
Right. These are very harsh words, because what Rabbi Steinsaltz is basically saying is that we may consider ourselves compassionate or caring or kind or loving, etc., with all sorts of feelings, but these feelings were really untrue. It's important, though, to be harsh because, again, the whole purpose of this book is to create a refined human being called the Beinoni. And in order to refine ourselves, we really have to dig deep. What is a feeling? And do we really have that feeling? And this is what this is focusing on. Now, Rabbi Steinsaltz is saying so because very often we think that we have a feeling, but we are the judges to ourselves. And very often we can't judge ourselves. And we may think that we are caring, for example, or compassionate, but really, if you analyze it, or if someone else would analyze it, we wouldn't be caring. I'm reminded of the story of Rabbi Naftali of Ropshitz, just to illustrate this. But Rabbi Naftali of Ropshitz was a great Hasidic master of some 250 years ago, and he was quite wealthy. And every year he would be visited by a poor man who would come and ask for money, and he would give him the exact same sum every year, a bag full of coins. And one year, this man comes and he asks him for his, annual charity. And Rabbi Naftali of Ropshitz gives him his annual charity. And then he leaves. He says thank you, and he leaves. And as he's already out in the street, he hears someone running after him. And this poor man turns around and he sees that it was Rabbi Naftali running after him. And Rabbi Naftali is there and he says to this poor man, I have another bag of coins to give you. And the poor man doesn't understand. He said, well, you already gave me a bag of coins. Why do you need to give me another one? And the poor man says, sorry, Rabbi Naftali says to the poor man, you don't understand. The first time I gave you this bag of coins is because I heard your story again. I saw your torn clothes and I had some mercy. So I gave you a bag of coins. Now, I want to give you another bag of coins just to be able to fulfill this mitzvah, not because it comes from the self, or it comes from my hurt feelings, or it comes from any type of ego. I want to give you this bag of coins just to fulfill this mitzvah, just to be a conduit of God's kindness, not because of me, not because of my own personal feelings. And many ways, this is what Rabbi Steinsaltz is saying here. Some people think that they're compassionate. That's great. But they're compassionate just because they're using their own, maybe sometimes even selfish, egotistic compasses. But that's not what compassion is. Compassion means that you are a conduit to the ultimate compassion, whether you feel like giving or don't feel like giving. Are you going to give that second bag of coin just to give? That's compassion. That's mercy. And in many ways, we haven't really achieved the ultimate feeling of compassion, if this is the feeling that we're speaking about. And it's true, obviously, for all other feelings, until we can analyze why we are compassionate. And if there's any iota of the I, of that ego in that compassion, then it's not compassion. And this is true, again, with every feeling, with love. Very often, and we've said this so many times, but we love really because of what the other brings us, not because we really want to love. So the other brings us pleasure, so we love in return. The Rabbi Steinsaltz, I know we've mentioned this in the past, but because Rabbi Steinsaltz used to tell the story often, and in fact he writes it in simple words in his book Simple Words in the chapter of love, but we'll share it again, that there was this king who loved this specific type of fish. So he told these fishermen, remember that? He told these fishermen, go and get me this type of fish. And the fishermen went and they went out to the sea and they were saying, the king loves, I think it was salmon. The king loves salmon. Let's find the salmon. The king loves salmon. The king loves salmon. Eventually they found the salmon and they were so happy. Yes, the king loves the salmon. He's going to be so happy. And the salmon he's hearing now, the fisherman speaking, he says, oh, great. The king loves me. If he really loves me, he's not going to want me to die. He's going to throw me back in the sea. Anyway, long story short, they bring him to the kitchen. The chefs have an argument how to slice the salmon. They say, well, we have to bring the king. The king comes in and the salmon says, great, this is my last chance. The king is going to see me. He loves salmon. He's going to throw me back in the sea. And then the king comes in and says, oh, thank you for getting the salmon. I love this. Please slice it this way and not that way. And then the salmon says, okay, the king doesn't love me. He loves the pleasure that I bring him. So he loves himself. And in many ways, that's also the type of love. We think we're loving. We're not really loving. We love ourselves. Love means that I'm completely devoted to the other in the most altruistic way. If there's any ego, any I involved, then again, I'm not loving. It's not love. And we can analyze every feeling like that. But the bottom line, and what true feelings have in common, is that they are all conduits of God, of God's channels, whether it's compassion or love or care or kindness or whatever other feeling you may want to analyze. And if you're not that channel, because it's all dependent, after all, on the I, then you're not that feeling either. Then you really are not feeling that. Then it's one big ego, one big I. It's harsh to hear that. But it's important if we want to be refined. It's important if we want to be Beinonis. And I think many people really conduct their lives thinking that they are indeed kind, etc. But they're not, as Rabbi Steinsaltz here says so powerfully. Now, the flip side of this analysis is also good. because many people think that they have negative feelings. But when you analyze those negative feelings, they're really not a feeling. People think, well, I'm I'm hateful. You're not really hateful because hate has to be again free of any ego if it's a pure feeling. It has to be also channeled in the right way. You know, King David says that those who love God hate evil. So sometimes that hate is not right, is not, it's good. It applies to the negative feelings too, what we're saying here. But it's something that we have to analyze in ourselves. And if we can't, as mentioned before, then we should have others who truly know us and who can really say it as it is for us, analyze ourselves, analyze us. And that's the only way really to reach that refinement. Anyhow, so that's true particularly for feelings. And it's true particularly for feelings, just to add one more note, because feelings are very blurry, very even chaotic world. Feelings also very often not true, not just because they have this ego involved, but feelings also are not true because they come and go. You see that a lot in children. That right now I'm so sad, and then 2 minutes later they're happy. So that sadness wasn't really true. It was just a play, it was an act. And we are taught to do that. We become more sophisticated at that as we grow. And sometimes we also launch a tantrum or, balance tantrum because we're adults now. But it's fake. It's not real feelings. And so that's the world of feelings. World of feelings is just so fluctuating and chaotic that it can really, really distort the way we think about them. So that's also why, the focus on feelings, because that world in and of itself is a very confusing world. All right, let's continue. But again, I want to hear your take, your ideas, your disagreements, your comments. Feel free to speak up. Unmute yourselves if you need to. Okay. Otherwise, we'll continue. This is a necessary reality check for the Benoni. Does anyone want to read?
This is a necessary reality check for the Benoni. He has to know that he is not a tzaddik. He must therefore engage in a continual process of self-clarification about what is a true feeling and what is not, while being cognizant at the same time that a feeling that is not true may yet be sufficient for a lifestyle of truth rather than falsehood. It is important for the Benoni to achieve the correct balance between self-deception on one hand and the frustration of not going beyond superficial feelings on the other. It is crucial for the Benoni neither to slip into false imaging nor to despair when he is unable to experience beyond his capacity. He is restricted by both emotion and perception in his efforts to create convincing abstract visualizations that limit his ability for feeling. Similitude synthesized experience is within his grasp, but it is far removed from the intensity of the real thing.
Right. So this is exactly what we were saying, that the Benoni needs to be analyzing himself all the time because he's not a tzaddik. He hasn't yet reached that ultimate level of righteousness. I think another method, by the way, to test our feelings is not just to ask whether there's some ego involved, but really to ask whether there's any action, good action, that comes from the feeling. Because just to put it very, very practically, I could say to my wife, "I love you" all day long, and in all sorts of ways, as we do in our society. I could call her all sorts of loving names all day long in all sorts of ways, as we do in our society. And it seems that we're becoming more and more creative at that too. But at the end of the day, if she tells me, "Can you help me please take out the garbage or clean the dishes?" and I say, "I love you," but no, then my love doesn't mean anything. What's this love all about? So if the emotion has a practical side to it, and it really is translated into a good deed, into action, then maybe it was a good emotion. Maybe it was an accurate emotion. But if not, then certainly it was a false emotion. Again, going back to those feelings that are so confusing and chaotic. Rabbi Steinsaltz would give that term, or would call those types of emotions in a very interesting term. He would borrow it from the world of medicine, he would call it false pregnancy. That, you feel pregnant, you think you have a baby, and you have all those symptoms, but really there's nothing there. It's just all hot air.
Pseudocyesis.
Thank you. Thank you. There we go. We can count on Jordan, our OBGYN here. What is it called again?
Pseudocyesis.
Pseudocyesis. Thank you. That's great. Well, there you go. And so tell us more. You're right. You have all the false symptoms, all the symptoms, apparently, or at least most of them, but there's no fetus. Is that what it is, Jordan?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a psychological condition where the woman convinces herself of the pregnancy, interprets various symptoms that she may be experiencing or believes she's experiencing
Hmm.
as symptoms of pregnancy.
There you go.
It's not very common. It's very
Okay.
rare. I've only seen two such patients
Really?
in 40 years approximately. Yeah.
Wow. So I guess in the spiritual world, it's much more common.
Hmm.
But where people really feel that they are close with God and that they are good people and that they're again caring and compassionate, etc. But when it comes to action, they're absent. And then you know that the feeling to begin with was was not a real one or was a very distorted one. And that's yet another method. So you have to analyze the feeling and see if there's any iota of ego. And sometimes, again, we are not good judges of ourselves. And number two, we have to see if the feeling also has any action, good action attached to it that's in sync with the feeling. Otherwise, it was a wrong feeling. And I would say there's another method to analyze whether the feeling is also an accurate one and one that, as we said before, is truly coming from God and not from the self. And I think that sometimes we're not good judges of those feelings, as we said, but as Rabbi Steinsaltz would very often tell us when we studied in his high school, he says, look, I don't know if you are becoming good people in my school. I don't know, your grades are not, the IQ is not a good measure for that. And even what your teachers are saying is not a good measure for that because you want to be good in the eyes of your teacher. You want to put up a good face. So go home, ask your parents, ask your siblings, ask the people that are closest to you if you've really changed. If yes, that means you are growing. That means that those feelings are really accurate. Feelings of renewed love, of renewed care, of renewed compassion that you have are accurate. So sometimes we have to ask our loved ones, how do you think I am? Have I changed, really? Because I'm feeling more compassionate, but it might just be false pregnancy. Because if your close ones are not feeling it, then it might be a wrong feeling again. Might be just your ego playing on you.
So, Rabbi, what
Yes.
you're saying is that the key to becoming Benyoni is basically to go beyond our feelings. So, because doing good makes us feel good. Like I give tzedakah because it's a pleasure to give tzedakah. But then I have to think, I do it because it's my pleasure to give, or I really, really, really want to. So I have to go beyond what I feel like giving. I should do more. Same for, I enjoy hosting people in my house and people thank me so much. And I'm like, don't thank me. I'm selfish. I do it because I enjoy having you around me. And my friends
So let's be
laugh at that.
yeah,
But I'm like, but I have to do more. So the
right.
key to be a Benyoni is go beyond what we feel. Is that what you're saying, basically?
So that's a great question. Yes, the key of becoming, look, let's be very clear that you should still host people, you should still give tzedakah, even if the reason you're doing it is because it makes you feel good. Because at the end of the day, the poor person will be able to feed his family with your tzedakah, and the host will feel loved because of your tzedakah. At the end of the day, the action is what counts. But if we are, the Tanya is about refining ourselves. It's about truly making this human being a spiritual being. And if we are truly searching to refine ourselves, then yes, we should seek to do tzedakah even when we don't feel good about it. And there's nothing wrong if the action brings a good feeling, but we shouldn't wait for the feeling to be good in order to give. That's purely selfish. That's also
Right.
not the Jewish way.
Gotcha.
So yes, look, we say it, in the Birkat Hamazon, in the blessing after the meal, that we say each time we have bread. After each time we have bread, there's a beautiful line there in the 4th chapter of Rachem. It says, we say to God, we ask God, please, Al tatzrichenu lo lidei matnat basar vadam. Please do not make us needy of gifts of people or flesh and blood. And please do not make us needy of the loans. Velo lidei alvatam. Ki'im, all we want is to receive from you and your hand directly. Mi'adcha ptucha kedusha v'archava. And the Hasidic commentators would very often say that these are 3 types of people who give charity. Some people give charity and they want people to know we gave. Years of flesh and blood who gave. That type of gift, right? Some people give charity and for them it's a loan. What does that mean? They say, look, God, we're going to do good, but you better be good to me now because I did good, right? And that still is founded on the ego.
Mm-hmm.
And then some people give charity and they say, no, we just want to be the instrument of your hand. We want God to work through us. And we're just instruments, just channels. And that's the ultimate type. That's what the Beinoni needs to achieve, to become a Beinoni. It's not about me. It's never about me. I mean, my me can benefit, okay, fine. But whether it benefits or not doesn't matter. It doesn't change the deed whatsoever. It doesn't change the feeling whatsoever. So that's what we're speaking about here. It's truly being that ultimate instrument. Not easy. Now, just again, to be as practical as possible. Some people can the way to work on this is, and I've said this also in the past, but I would encourage everyone to pick 3 deeds, 5 deeds that are very difficult for them to do. It could be anything from charity. Some people, it's hard for them to give charity. It doesn't have to be a lot also. Or it could also be just helping someone. 3 deeds that are very hard for them to do, and to do them every day just because. Because what will be a guarantee is that with those 3 deeds that you are doing against your will, you will be a channel for God because you're doing them for God. There's no other reason you do them. You don't want to do them.
Right.
And in many ways, that trains us to think that way, to become channels in that way. And eventually it spills over to the other areas of our lives. And sometimes we can increase from 3 to 5 to 10. And eventually we become those instruments.